All right, here we are, everybody. Scott Hastings, as close as you want him to be. I'm on the old school position. I'm not in my little chair with the fancy wall with the on air. I'm going old school tonight on
You're
this podcast.
you're in with the Vista hoodie and sitting in front of the liquor.
Yes, plenty of nice bourbon to be had back there,
That,
is
that
what's going on.
you're going to our COVID our COVID. I went long ways. How about this? This is better.
Sure.
D-Mac
Whatever.
said I should go the other way, and D-Mac kind of runs these podcast things.
What did he want? Your face close up?
It looks much better if it's like this.
Yeah, I know. But you know what? I'm not always here. I guess I could try to zoom in too. But, there's just times where you just do what you do, right? You just do what you do. So, anyway.
We're not professional audio podcasters. But
Well,
the
reality is,
advertise the show, we would become professional audio podcasters.
sure, yeah. Well, look, we'd like to hire some people, but that's not in the budget right now, and maybe eventually.
Let me ask you a question before we get into the sports, because there's one or two things to talk about. One, you yelled at me hard today, so I want to get the essence behind your hard anger. But
I didn't yell at you.
Oh, yeah, you yelled at me hard. Oh, you go ahead, mister. I played basketball, so I'm smarter than everybody else, and I have the answers. You tell me. That was anger. So
because I like getting it out of you.
Real fast, is all this pollen affecting you at all?
No, it is crazy. By the way, I swear to God, every time we do a podcast, they decide it's time to give the dogs a snack, and my pug, the smallest of all the dogs I own, just absolutely loses his shit, and all I hear is like I've got elephants running upstairs, but I guess you're not picking it up. It was nasty. I dusted my house today, and there was so much pollen on the dust cloth when I was done. My daughter's messed up. She's had she's been plugged for 3 days.
That's the warden.
Yeah.
The warden's got like 8 pounds stuffed into her 5-pound bag right now.
Dude, I'm telling you, it's, it normally we get this, like, I feel like in the fall when all the stuff dies and then it blows around. But yeah, I couldn't believe. Matter of fact, I got it on the hood of my truck too. Just a yellow coating of everything. Is unbelievable. So no, I pray that I keep it going, that I don't get affected by that. But I haven't to this point. It
hasn't hit me too bad. My daughter got it for a day or so, and the warden's been hammered by it for about like 3 days.
Yeah, my daughter's miserable.
Who was the guy that we used to have on? Used to do the imitation of the old, like, 3 packs a day smoker lady. Hey, tell me I'm some like. That's what the warden sounds like right now.
That sounds like my friend's mom's grandma, anybody from the 70s or 80s where they smoked in the bar most of the time. Sounds like what you're describing. They call you honey all the time, but they got a voice like this.
Andy, pass me that fruit salad.
Yeah, I'm into the Pall Mall, babe. All right, so yeah, but you know what? They could cook good. So
there you go.
All right, what do you want to get into? Let's revisit the conversation.
Where your anger, you came in, you were going to try to read a dumb stat from Vic that he had on, and I cut you short because we had just hammered that, and you jumped my stuff. I just want to know where your anger came from.
No, it's not anger. I just want to be educated. Look, you're a big imposing figure. And I tell people all the time, sometimes you say it and you don't mean it. But when it comes to you, me, and Stink, right? Mm-hmm. And even Johnson, I just feel like there's certain people that I could talk to you in a way other people are afraid to. And so I'm not afraid to, because I know even if you hit me, you wouldn't go full swing.
Hey, but you had Kreckman and D-Mac cowering in the corner.
They wanted to get out of the studio. They were see, you and I think maybe it's just me. I grew up in a yelling household. I have a passionate Irish mother. Now, my dad doesn't yell at anybody. He's more stoic and quiet. But I told you, my whole life in the 80s was your parents yelling at you, or your coaches yelling at you, or I just grew up with a lot of yelling. And it came from people that I knew deep down loved me. So yelling doesn't bother or scare me. I'm not afraid to live in loud environments. I'm a loud person myself.
You know, it's funny.
So
My household wasn't loud. It was an emotional household, whatever the emotion might be, but it wasn't ever really loud. Um, but it's funny. I had a handful of loud coaches growing up, and that was just expected. That never bothered me. And I know there's a lot of kids right today, even kids. When I say kids, 20-year-olds in the pros can't take it. Never had it, don't know how to take it. Really, and I've said this before, so I won't go long-winded on it. But AAU basketball to me has killed the NBA a little bit because it's all for the most part AAU guys in the league now, and most of them's never been told no. Never, none of us been told, let's have a little professionalism when we come to a game or whatever it is. I mean, the guys that are wearing sunglasses and their hats backwards and sideways doing national press conferences, and this is old man get off my lawn, and I know that's the cool style. And you know what? I lifted weights today. I went and lifted today just like this. So hey, I can go there. But I just, when I want to see my star up there, and let's be honest, those are the ones who are usually on the pressers. I want to look like this is a business for you. I want this to mean something for you. And it's why years ago where I started, I didn't like it and I still don't when they bring their kids up there.
no, I know, and you told me that, even though it looked,
Cute and look at the story, and they got, I saw a Jewish rando the other day. His son was taking questions.
right. And look, the guy's looking for a quote, and again, it is get off my lawn or you guys are just media and blah, blah, and whatever. And that's fine. I don't expect everybody to always be on the side of the media. I'm trying to move up and give them a little more what they want, but I'm enjoying my couch tonight. I don't expect people to be on the side of the media all the time. Okay. And you know what? You and I will have a real discussion. This is going to be a podcast exclusive insight because we didn't get to talk about it today. To say I was mad at you, I was never mad at you, but you are a teacher. You are one of the guys that I will talk to about this or bring questions to. Stink's one of the guys, Rod Smith. I'm lucky I have so many football people I could talk to, but there's not as many basketball people out there. And you know what I get frustrated with about the culture right now? And I made reference to it in my Jamal Murray rant. If you're going to act like you're too cool for school for the press, fine, bro, but you're not going to get an all-star team that way. If you're going to be too cool to ever do an interview with anybody except the ESPNs after you've had a good game on national TV, you're not going to get a bunch of fans to vote for you because guess what? None of us know who the hell you are unless you're in Denver, okay? But you don't put yourself out there, and I get it, and it's fine to be too cool to do the media stuff and all that other stuff, but, I didn't care for the way he talked to Ernie the other night, and look, he had a point. Ernie didn't have a question in there, but you don't have to get cocky with the guy.
We all fall into that. Even somebody who's as professional and as has as many hash marks on his sleeve as anybody's Ernie Johnson. And it was a long-winded statement. It really was. But you don't need to point that out. But it is what it is. And nowadays you can do that, and everything is cute. Whatever. I got you. And you don't have to respect the media. But I want the media, and I'll get on a media person too. I want the media to be professional also.
Sure.
I don't need Ramona Shelburne, who is a nice lady, and I talk to her every time I see her whenever, ESPN or LA's in town. Wonderful lady. But I don't need her to bring up some story that's the headline of a big story, I guess. But the one bullet point is, Gordon calls Westbrook immature.
But see, that's the key. He didn't.
Well, but was told he did, and you bring it up in Game 4 after Game 4 in the was it Game 4? Yeah, after Game.
No, it was game. Here, let me help you. It was Game 2 after the Clippers, where they got mad.
I know that, but it's the story hit after Game 4.
Right after Game 4 of the right. Okay, I got you. You're right.
It happened 10, 12 days ago. If it's such a salacious quote and it shows maybe a breakage, an issue, why ain't that out there then?
Yeah, why didn't you write it a week ago? I feel you there. That's a fair criticism. Now, again, but here's what I think is interesting. Remember, Scotty, she overheard Gordon saying what he said to Westbrook. I'm assuming Gordon Westbrook were in whatever room, and it was another unnamed player that made the immature quote. She wouldn't name the player.
I took it when I read the article today that an unnamed player told her that Gordon called him immature.
No, I read it as the player called him, said he's just immature sometimes, when she asked why was this all going down. So I can go back and
if it was explained to me like that, then I would have said the guy just probably threw something off the cuff to be funny. Because when I read it and the way I took it, I'm like, oh, she's got this guy who's one of the unnamed sources, which is the king of the quotes nowadays, in whether it's political, business, or sports journalism. I took it like that. If it was she just overheard somebody saying, if this was just one reporter going in somebody's locker room, happened to look by and see Angelo Steen Dion supplement in there and didn't rifle the locker room, then okay.
Okay, so I've got the quote. Okay. An anonymous player on the Nuggets says Russell Westbrook is immature per Ramona Shelburne. Minutes after the Nuggets lost in game 2 of their first round series against the Clippers, Adelman had a problem while he'd been at the post-game lectern. There had been a heated discussion between Westbrook and Gordon in the locker room. Multiple sources told ESPN. So you're right there. Gordon had challenged Westbrook about his attitude outside the locker room. One player relayed why Gordon might have done so. He's so immature, the unnamed player said of Westbrook. So
it wasn't her overhearing it. That player.
No, you're right.
Sources
told her, and then when she followed up, this is the anonymous player saying he's so immature. So, but you're right. Look, your point stands that why is this story being written in a whole other series after you got wind of it? But I don't know when she found out about it.
All right, does it sound like she didn't hear about it right after game 2?
Yeah, I can't tell. You might be right. I don't know. Look, here's my thing, Scotty. I don't want to now bag on other media people and then go and make the same mistakes. I don't know when she got a hold of it.
Yeah,
so
I'm just telling my perception of the article and how I read it, and I may be wrong too. But the point being is if I'm going to be critical on a player, I had a long conversation with an NBA official who's busting my chops before. She says I get on even before. I said, in fact, he told me the other day, he said, if I could throw you out of the game, I would sometimes. He said that to me, right? But he was the 4th official in a game, one of the home games of Denver. It was either 5 or 7 in the Clippers series. And I had a long talk with him. Well, I'll tell you who it was. It was Justin Van Dyne. And what a neat guy. He was a policeman for 9 years. He still does auxiliary police work for the force he was on in the off season. Now he's an NBA referee. I think he, gets a little emotional sometimes. I don't like officials, so I give all of them a hard time. But I told him this. I said, Justin, if my job, first of all, if I was a national guy, I wouldn't care. Because I'm supposed to be a cheerleader for both sides, and it doesn't matter. That's the easiest job in the world of what I do. But I'm paid by a certain team. I ain't paid by both teams. I'm paid by one team. Right? So
the other team has their broadcast.
I try to be fair, and I'm still pretty critical on our team when we screw up, but I'm going to be on that side. I said, but if my job is to be critical of a call a coach makes, or a decision a coach makes, or a play a player does make or doesn't make that's wrong, why am I not allowed to be critical on you?
Sure.
What you guys do. And he goes, that's fair. So it was a great conversation, and I got a newfound respect for the kid.
Okay, but I would say this. I wish I could have been by your side, because then I would have asked, what, do you not realize that it does look personal sometimes to fans, and how do you explain that? And I'll give you, and then this would have been before your conversation, but you can't tell me that the foul on Jokic where he's getting clothesline last night wasn't called because you showed up a ref. That's why you called him for that.
Yeah.
He was fouled. But because he decided to if you're not going to blow a whistle and get him off me, then I'm going to continue to show you he's got a hold of me, and now you've shown him up, and that's why you gave me the foul.
Well, you're not allowed to impede a guy, and if a guy's holding his arm out to the side, that's past the width of your body. Like if I'm square on you, I can hold you up, but I'm not allowed to put an arm in there. Now, what all Joker did is he has arms up, so he just set his arm down. He wasn't clamping it. He just put his arm down over the top. Did the guy ever try to pull it in?
No.
Did the guy ever take it back? It honestly probably, if you weren't going to call impeding, it probably is a no call. But
Sure.
David Guthrie, who, by the way, I'll remind people, is the guy I think in Game 2 when a Detroit Piston is fouled in the corner on a 3-point shot, doesn't blow his whistle, admits afterwards he screwed up. It was a 1-point loss, and the guy had 3 free throws because he shot a 3 and got fouled. Probably would have won the game. In New York, extend the series. Now that Knicks series, who's about, I didn't even see what happened tonight, is about to go to the the Eastern Conference Finals. And instead, they should have played another game in that Detroit series. So he's going to make that call, and that's exactly what it is. That's a call. That's also a call you make. When you make that in December when you're PO'd at a guy for trying to show you up.
All right.
Not late May or mid-May in the playoffs.
Okay. So let's get back to the original start of this conversation because it leads into a lot of things I do want to talk about tonight with the Nuggets. So what I like about you is you're a teacher. If you want honesty about when you frustrate me sometimes, and you don't always do it to me, you explain it to me, but sometimes I'd like you to share it on the radio. Now, sometimes you got 2 people with you that like to talk as well, so maybe you don't even get a chance to get your whole point out. But when you tell me that you don't think that the minutes matter, or you don't think there's not, because my frustration's this, Scotty. And again, look, you and I are trying to talk, and there's 2 other people in there, and it goes where it goes, and then until we scared them, everybody was talking. But my point was, all right, if you're going to tell me, because here's what I know. Now, look, your point is valid. Vic's point's valid. Everybody that said Nikola did not look tired at the end of that quarter or the end of the game, you're right. I'm not going to argue that. He was still playing. But all I know is what I've seen is every time you play the guy, you eventually, everything seems to run out of steam and you don't win the games. Now, shouldn't say that was necessarily the case last night, but their offense did crap out towards the end. So whether we're talking about Jamal or I just don't understand why you can't find spaces here and there to just try to steal some damn minutes to rest some guys. The other thing I didn't get to say to you that I wanted to say was, you want to know when I really got worked up last night was the end of the third quarter where I saw they had Gordon in, they had Murray in, they had Joker in, they had Westbrook in. Like they had all their try-hard dudes we're going to have to rely on in the fourth quarter in the game at that point. I thought the plan was to the other points of this series, he was at least getting Gordon and Murray out of there and let Joker play with the other guys. But you ran them all into the damn ground last night, man. And look, what I want you to explain now for all of us, because I do have a hard time with it. How can you not, I said it to you today, how can you not trust a DJ for just 3 or 4 minutes? How can you not trust a Strother? I realize that sometimes they come in and give the lead up, but you didn't exactly blow them away anyway. It just boggles, I think, my mind and fans' mind that you have so little trust in dudes that are being paid to play the game. Well, that's the hard part. That's what I love for you to explain to me.
I'll work it backwards. One, part of the reason you're saying this, you start with why isn't there a GM in place?
You're right.
It starts right there. Why I said that stat where I think it was the starters played 900 some minutes versus 813 minutes.
It's basically 2.5 hours more.
And I said it didn't matter. But then you got mad before I got to explain why, because they have to. And I really liked what Nate said when you guys were on your show too. They don't have a bench. Could you? But fine. Go back and show me the last time DJ was super effective. If you're just saying, well, you can get him a rest. I would, Nate, on this game in particular. Now, I thought Joker looked tired in game 4. I thought he looked tired in the fourth. It had been nice. Well, he did get some rest. He still looked tired. But he got some rest in game 4, and the team went on a 14-2 run while he's sitting on the bench. And when he came back in, he's up 8 when he goes out, and they're down 2 when he comes back in.
Sure.
So I guarantee you're back up. What were you up again? Up 8 again, going in the fourth quarter. And I guarantee you, coach go, well, I'm not going to get burned on the same thing. I'm with Nate on this. Joker can do it. And Joker will have games where he gets fatigued and all the stuff happens. I'll tell you why last night was a little different than some of the previous games later. But Murray ain't used to that. And Murray missed his last 4 shots in the third quarter. And other than a driving layup when you're down 7, I think it was, with like 22 seconds, and he made a layup. That's his only bucket he made, and missed a bunch of open shots. Shots that were big, and he ain't the only one. But he shots. He had a Carmelo Anthony 28 points last night.
Okay.
What's that, Scott? Well, he took 27 shots to get 28 points. Good players. When I played, and this was before the 3-point line, you wanted about 1.5 points for every shot. So if I got 27 points, if he was great, he would have, what would that be? 27 plus another, say 14. So he should have had 41. If he's having a super efficient night, right? 40, 41.
To help your point,
Joker had how many shots last night?
18 to 25. That's what I was going to tell you.
He had 25 and he had 44. So that's
more than 2 points a shot.
That's well, not quite, right?
No, 18 times 2 is 36. He had 44.
Well, I thought he had 25 shots.
Oh, okay. Fair. Yeah, you're right.
It's shot attempts. Excuse me, shot attempts. So you want
25 shot attempts. Yes.
And listen, the coach told me this. And he said, I'm talking great players. In fact, I know this. I got chewed out in college one time because I wasn't shooting enough. He goes, Scott, you're averaging 1.7 points every time you shoot the ball. He said, great players hover about 1.5. You're at 1.7. Because I never shoot, or if I did, I'd get fouled a lot. That was just kind of my game. I think the most shots I ever took in college was 16 in a college game ever. So Murray and that's what Carmelo Anthony was always great at. He got 31 points, and look up, dang, he had 30 shots. You know, I mean, that ain't super efficient. And he missed the back. I thought the fatigue hit him a lot harder than it hit Joker. Here's the answer, Andy. They're lucky.
Sure.
They're lucky they're playing a game 6 at home with the chance to extend the series. They're absolutely lucky. You've got 5 starters that are pretty good. One of them is playing horrible. We'll throw the shoulder in and saying it's the shoulder's fault, but I sent you a graph. Last 4 games, 5 games, that Minnesota series, he disappeared in that one too, and there wasn't no shoulder in that one. He's got to break a thing, and now he's having to break a cycle with a bad shoulder of playing bigger and bigger moments. And to me, there's a shadow over him for that. He has an excuse this year with the shoulder, and I'm sure that really kills him. But he's the key to he's the key for them to go to 6 or go to 7 and even win 7. It's going to be on Michael Porter Jr. because he's your best shooter. There's no one even close. He makes shots. It's going to pull out that defense. You look back and see the games, especially he struggled, how the lane really gets clogged. He's just a big key for them. And he missed shots. He was 0 for 5 again last night from 3, I think, right? 1 of 7 shooting.
He had 2 points.
Yeah, his only bucket came at the 5:28 mark in the first quarter. And he played how many minutes last night?
He was up, I want to say, around 30. I'd have to pull the box score up again.
I think 24 plus.
Okay, I'll trust you.
So he didn't score for over 19 minutes on the floor if it was at 24. Add more if he played more. Christian Brown made his last basket at the 23 mark of the second quarter. That's another guy that went over 20 plus minutes in an NBA playoff game that didn't give you a point.
Right.
And that kills you after a while. But they're lucky, man. There's no depth. Your sixth man is 36 years old, 36, 37. I mean, God bless him. He's a physical specimen.
He's in unbelievable shape.
Yeah, he's an unbelievable specimen. But again, he gave you 4 points. You know, I mean, and that wasn't enough. The game you beat him there, he had 20. So I think they're fortunate to be where they are. They've still got a really good, solid 5. Russ is an energy guy that we've talked before the series. You got to take the bad with the good, and just hope there's a lot more good than bad. He comes back tomorrow in Denver and drops in 18, 19 off the bench. You're going to be okay. You know, he has 4 or 5 points, probably going to struggle, but that's all you got, man. Peyton Watson. He's not a scorer. You hope he can make a couple of those open threes when he gets them.
No, I know. I'm with you. It just is frustrating, Scotty, because they don't have any draft picks. And I think we've now seen, you're probably going to have to make some trades this offseason, Scotty. There's just no, because if you don't shake up the contract situations, if you don't free up some money, there's nothing you can do, I don't know, man. It's going to and then you got to figure out who wants the guys that. See, this is what we do as fans all the time, too. Well, we'll just trade this guy or that guy, and we'll get this super great deal for it. Well, man, if we're seeing that the guy's not worth the money, what do you think the rest of the league's seeing with a couple of these dudes? So that's what's going to be interesting about it.
You know what I did watching that game, and I went back and watched it this morning. It was great. Everybody left the house, and so I had 3-4 hours by myself. So I was able to watch a game like I'm watching film, run it back, go back, look at this, what happened. Who's that man? Why isn't he out there? How did he get open? And you can see things. I don't like to watch it with emotion, but they don't have depth. They're going to have a lot more. I bet they had a lot more starter minutes than the Clippers did. Also, DJ on the surface say, why can't you give you 3 or 4 minutes? But is he quick enough? If Chet's in there and Hardenstein's on the bench, is he going to chase Chet out the 3-point line? Probably not. And then you're going to give a pretty good 7-footer that can shoot jumpers, wide open shots. If they play their bigger guys, then great, keep him in there and he can do what he wants to do. The tough thing is you sure would have liked Zeke Naji to be a lot further along in his development. For this type of game, he's the perfect size and length that could have really helped you in this series. But I don't think there's a lot of trust. And you moved the head coach, which I don't think trusted him 100%. Well, guess who's on? The whole rest of the staff is there too. And they were in on all the meetings. They were in all the film sessions. So I don't think all of a sudden, because one guy leaves, all of a sudden the trust piles on. But by one glimmer of hope that I got last night, and I said this before the season started, that needed to happen. Julian Strawther, I still think has something special in him. Now, he's got to be able to play an entire season without being hurt. 2 years in a row, he's missed 4 to 6 weeks in the middle of the season after he's starting to play good. Remember his rookie year, he's starting to play a little bit. He's got regular rotation minutes. Does something to his knee, misses 4 or 5 weeks. This year, starting to play, you're starting to count on him. He's averaged some good points off the bench. He knocked some shots down. All right, here we go. Does something to his knee. He's out 6 weeks. And then all of a sudden, by the time you come back, I think he came back with 2 weeks left in the season. It's done. Your chance of rotation minutes are over. So it's tough, man. But I still think Strawther can be something special off your bench. He's got to get a little stronger. I think you've got to start going more into what the NBA does, and think of all the great scores we played against in the games you've watched, Dan. How all the great scores create the contact, make the shot. Our guys, our scores feel the contact, fade away from it, and hope we get a call and make the shot. Well, you ain't getting the call 9 out of 10 times, and 8 out of 10, you're probably not making the shot also. So now you're just kind of moving off the side, screaming, ball's clanking off. You're on the ground. Next thing you know, they got a 5-on-4 going the other way.
Well, look, to your point about the bench, hopefully, and we don't know, but hopefully Duron Holmes is that athletic big that you can bring off. The guy's listed at 6'10". I don't know what the real height is, but still you could.
I think he is.
It would have been nice to have that available. That's all I'll say. That would have been your fail-safe plan for your backup plan to Zeke Najee. But all right, man.
You know who I'm going to get a look? I was talking to somebody on the Clipper series when I was traveling. Talked to a couple personnel on the team, one a scout, one an assistant. And I think P.J. Hall is going to get a big-time look next year. I think he was probably a college center. He can shoot it a little bit, but he's rough and tumble, and maybe he can play if he's, maybe he can play some small five, or maybe he can be a power forward for you. But I think they're going to give P.J. Hall a look to see if he's able to come up here and be something.
Well, but see, you said it right there, and that's what I like. They need some physical dogs. They need some guys that aren't afraid when it gets rough. They need their Ifika Zubats, Avisa Zubats, whatever his name is. You need a dude like that ain't afraid. You need a Hartenstein. That's what gets frustrating about this. Some of these guys that you're seeing, Hartenstein was a guy that you had. You never found a chance to play him, I don't know if he would have turned into this, and if he did, I don't know if you could have been able to afford him. But damn, it'd be nice to find out what some of these guys are before you just let them go wandering off into other teams. So hopefully that starts to change. All right, look, you heard my rant about Jamal Murray. I'll make it for those that are new to the podcast, didn't catch the show and we were all doing our things together. Look, at the end of the day, man, you're the $200 man. $200 million man. Everybody told me that you had to be paid, that you couldn't disrespect the guy. You've been the Robin to Joker's Batman. A whole lot of characters in there. You've been the guy that's come along in the fourth quarter. You've hit the shots when everybody's been collapsing on him. He's the reason why they were able to do a lot of the special things they did to win the title. What has to happen for him to? Because again, you talked about it. He had a nice third quarter, but then you couldn't throw it in the ocean in the fourth quarter. So what has to happen to get him back and active and just being like? Why is the consistency gone? I feel like you knew what you would get most nights from Jamal in the championship run. I feel like the last couple seasons and these last two playoff runs in particular, you don't know what you're going to get out of the guy. Why is that?
Yeah, I don't know. The shot hadn't fallen. I think real physical teams. Minnesota did the same thing to him last year. Now I think he was more banged up last year.
Yeah, the calf.
But he's just kind of getting through being able to play against dudes that beat him up, and Dort's beating the hell out of him up, and then Sims or whatever the kid name that comes in after him, just beating the snot out of him. When you play Minnesota, they put one of those two tall wings on him, and McDaniels or the Alexander kid, I can't think of his name.
Sure.
They lean on him, beat him up, show height. I thought yesterday his shot was affected. He missed. Remember, he missed a wide open kick out three from Joker. Gordon got the rebound, I think, kicked it back out to him into the corner, and now he's got a wide open corner three, and both of them barely drew iron.
And then they got the rebound again.
Yeah, and that was that time, I think, when you got up 9. Remember, I told you today they got up 9. And Oklahoma City took a timeout. 10:21 to go in the fourth quarter. Neither team scored. Finally, Dort hit the first of his threes at like 8:29, so almost 2 full minutes. Neither team scored. Denver went even a little bit further on that to where they didn't score again. I think till Joker hit a floater.
It was like 7 minutes without a field goal.
Yeah, I think it went from the 10:21 to like 5-something, yeah, or 4-something maybe. And that was it right there. But it was wide open shots.
Yep.
I mean, Porter had 2 wide open shots. He airballed one left. I mean, it not only was an air ball, it was off target 4 feet. And that right there is just, maybe that's a shoulder. Or maybe that's the guy that is sitting there saying, and I had a coach tell me years ago, every time a shooter shoots, you should be saying, this one's in, this one's in, this one's in. Your 4 teammates around you going, that's a miss, that's a miss. And then you attack the glass, get some offensive glass. But a shooter's always got to think every shot he goes in and makes. That looked like a shooter was going, please go in, not it's in. And I think there's a way different mentality. I think Mike's hurt. I think Mike's in his head. I think he's the kind of kid, he's a sweet kid, love him to death. But I think he's a kid that also gets in his head too much. I'm sure this series is just eating him up, inside. And this, dude, you played lacrosse. If you're in your head, how good you playing?
You're not. You can't be thinking things. You can't.
Yeah, you're frozen. It freezes you up is what it does. But he's the key. He's the biggest key. Him and Jamal. Jamal's got to have an efficient shooting game tomorrow. And Porter's got to give you 2 or 3 threes. And Russ has got to give you,
15 points, 16
double
points.
Figures off the bench. And I think you got a chance to win it. And if you win it, listen, you got 2 days of rest in between games 6 and 7. And they do too. So they're going to be rested up too. But I'm going to tell you what, you're going to be like Cleveland going, dude, we won 68 games. We're about to get knocked out by a force. What? And also you got two extra days, an extra day to be thinking about it too. And if you're Denver, you're going, dude, can you believe we're here? These guys are going to be yellow down their leg right now. Hey, go back. Listen, Denver lost a game 6 to Portland that first year when they started all these runs. They beat San Antonio in game 7. They got Portland in game 7 at home. They lose that game 6 in like 3 overtimes, right, in Portland. And then they come back, and what happened? McCollum got hot. McCollum got hot, and Jamal Murray went 2 for 12 or 2 for 18 or 16 or something like that. Game over. So, hey, you get to game 7, Jamal get hot, Williams or Shea Gilgeous gets a little uptight, and all of a sudden they go 4 for 18. Now you're playing in the Western Conference Finals.
But see, that just was it, man. That just was it. It was Shea Gilgeous-Alexander did not have, like, his last 10 points came in like the last couple minutes or something, but it was all because Lou Dort was able to make those 3 threes, catch Oklahoma City back up. Then all of a sudden, the pressure, because you just mentioned right there, pressure's not on so much anymore. Now we're back in this thing.
Yep. Now we got a lead.
By the way, Cleveland won 64. Let's see here.
Cleveland won 64. Oklahoma City won 68.
Kevin wants to know, Jokic closing out in 3-pointers is a problem. He needs to run them off the 3-point line. He wanted me to ask you about that.
Okay. Before I answer it, let's break it down. You want your 7-1, second the NBA leading rebounder, averaging, I think, 12 rebounds a game this series, 285, 90 pounds. You want him to run shooters off the 3-point line.
So that's not the problem. Let me ask you, because you explained to me one time there was a wide open look. It might have been the Minnesota game where it looked like it was Joker's guy because he was in the proximity, but it wasn't his guy. Are they screwing up those rotations again?
Well, they're trying to play a little bit in zone, and it did. I can remember what was the guy's name? Scott, Chad, Steve.
Who? Kevin? Kevin?
Kevin. The one that's really obviously happened late, Kevin, that I can remember. See if you remember this one too. And it was in that corner away from the benches. And Joker kind of got about halfway. They're playing kind of a zone, and if you watch Joker and how he plays that zone, he's going. They started up. It almost looked like a 1-3-1 for a while. Then it was like a 2-1-2, and then it was a 3-2. And Joker's playing that middle center fielder. And if you're watching him, he's trying to take away that low cut drop lob dunk, because the one time he was out on the wing on the other side, Porter didn't drop down to where he was supposed to, and Hardenstein got a lob and a dunk. I think he's playing. If Kevin's right, you got to get out there. He's playing too much center field.
Okay.
He's roaming the middle, trying to keep people from getting easy stuff at the rim. But I do remember one. He's on the line, goes to corner. He just kind of gets out there about 3/4 away. But again, I'll just say this: second best, number average per rebounds per game in the NBA, 7-1, and you want him out taking shooters in the corners.
Well, and like you also pointed out, he's the only guy that is consistently rebounding right now. I mean, he was in amongst three people, just tapping it around 2 or 3 times to himself, right, and getting it back up there. So,
it's kind of like Kevin. Kevin's probably yelling at me now. In Chicago. You're not wrong, but you're also wrong. I mean, you're right, but you're also wrong. There's got to be something else in there. You say, okay, Joker, don't play as much center field, stay further out, flatter on the thing, and now you can get closer. And when you get driven by, which, if Adamares and all those think that that's him playing defense because a 6'5" or 6'6" guard could dribble past him from the perimeter, that's bad defense. I'm like, okay. Again, I repeat, 7'1", 290 pounds, and do you honestly, in the grand scheme of great defenses, how often do you want him chasing shooters out at the 3-point line? Now, some of those games you've lost this year, they killed you, and the Clippers game killed you on the offensive glass. So that's a good question, Kevin, but it's tough, man. If I'm coaching, I'm trying to figure out a way I don't have my 6'11" or my 7'1", 290-pound center running out challenging corner threes. Because if the guy does miss, who rebounds?
right. Well, and you can't, like, MPJ can't go up with his one arm. He's shown it consistently. He's only reaching with one arm, so that's not going to work. Now, sometimes Gordon can get in there, but Gordon's not as tall as Chet. And he's not as tall as Hartenstein either, is he?
Oh no,
Yeah,
Hartenstein's
so
7 foot.
yeah. Let's see here. Alex asked this question: Do you feel Adelman could have helped get Murray and AG going in the fourth? ATO plays have been disorganized so far with the Adelman tenure.
I'd like to get it explained to me. I don't know if I erased it or not. I could go back and look at the fourth quarter. I saw it coming in the third. Murray looked dead tired in the third. If Alabama made a mistake in that, it wasn't the Joker played in the fourth quarter. It was probably, as you said a while ago, take Murray out the last 2 minutes of the third, get him rest there, and then bring him back in the fourth. So, and then maybe you do take Joker out, or even if you keep Joker in, so what? It's really funny. I don't know, to be honest with you. Murray has a lot of ball handling duties. I think the least amount of times you can put Aaron Gordon in ball handling duties, the better, personally. Could they run stuff? I don't know. Maybe. You know what I liked about the first game that you haven't seen as much, and this might be an adjustment on Oklahoma City. They were switching everything, and they were getting Gordon getting switched on with Shai Gilgeous or somebody like that. Now, they've done a good job of hiding Shai Gilgeous. He's not a great defender. He can jump, block a shot here and there, coming from the weak side. But he ain't going to stop nobody. If you want to run a play that's a handoff, get a switch, and all of a sudden Gordon gets switched off onto Shai or somebody like that, go for it. I'm all in for that.
Well, okay, so Ben says play Zeke instead of Mike, and that might solve the rebounding and defensive issues. So, Ben, we've talked about that a little bit earlier. And Scotty said it's a shame that he's not what you need him to be. But Scotty's not only told me on in private, he said it on this podcast. Zeke does not have good hands. And unfortunately, Ben, I'm with you on the theory. No one's going to argue. We'd all love him to play. But Ben, remember back, what game was it, Scotty? He finally did get in. He like knocked 2 or 3 balls out of bounds just trying to grab them. It was unreal. And then if he did get him, he either had him taken away or knocked away from him right away. Like for his big and the guy looks like he's cut of stone, and yet he can't prevent people from knocking or taking the ball away from him. And that's when he grabs it. Half the time, he like grabs it and misplays it and he goes flinging out somewhere else. It's maddening as hell. It really is. Because you're right, Ben. In theory, he should be the guy getting in there.
And Ben, and we said this earlier in the podcast, he's the perfect size and be the perfect guy, and it'd be awesome if it was. He has horrible hands, which I don't understand because he's a really good piano player. To me, I would think that a guy who can play piano would have nice, soft hands and could catch. Or maybe he just doesn't have grip strength. I don't know. He loses the ball way too much. And now you know what? Here's where you played yourself into. You're almost one of those dudes that's painting the floor or mopping the floor, and you got to the corner and you realize, ooh, I'm in a corner.
How do I get out of here?
Yeah, how do I get out of this thing? You've almost painted yourself in a corner to where what can you do? I mean, you go with who you trust. You know, maybe Malone had a little bit of that problem also as far as his coaching style. The difference is I think there's more buy-in in the locker room. He still is giving guys, you know, it's different. It's more positive. But I don't know, man. Zeke would be a great answer. And again, he's another guy that's in his career has had moments where all of a sudden he's getting to play good and he gets hurt. Last year, he was getting some minutes, serious minutes contributing, and all of a sudden he gets Oscar Slaughter's disease or something like that for half the season. So I don't know, man. He would be perfect. If Peyton Watson could finish at the rim and be more of a consistent scorer, he'd be great to get more minutes also, to be honest with you. I think you may have to roll with Julius Strawther just a few more minutes. And you know, I know Nate's big thing is put Jamal off the ball and let somebody else handle it. That's great, fine. But I don't think you don't need to play him 24 straight minutes in the second half. He didn't. I didn't feel he held up to that last night, to be honest with you.
Josh wants to know if they have an emotional and physical fortitude to compete tomorrow for the full 4 quarters, or do you feel like we see this with teams sometimes? I don't think Joker has that problem, but here we go again. Would you be worried about a here we go again in the fourth quarter, or are they not put together that way?
You've had 4 close games, fourth quarter games, and you won 2 and lost 2. You know, it just happens. You won the first 2 that were close, game 1 and game 3. You end up winning overtime. And you've lost game 4 and game 5. So you've won 2 close games and you've lost 2 close games. It'd be nice if Oklahoma City just takes the night off tomorrow and goes, oh, we'll beat them in game 7 and you have an easy one. I don't think they will.
You know, another reason why they might not, Minnesota's finishing their series tonight. So
yeah,
Oklahoma City's probably going to want a little rest like they get.
Yeah, they're gonna, and that way they'll probably start the series Sunday. I would think maybe, but that's still that's Sunday.
Could be, yeah.
So they'll either start Sunday or Monday. But I don't know. I don't know. Listen, you've won 2 close ones, you've lost 2 close ones, and I think if you can get it, the next 2 games, let's see. Maybe you go 3-3, win game 6, win game 7. You know what the biggest thing sticks in my head? And I hate even bringing it up. But right now, you know what sticks in my head is 2009. And if you remember that Lakers series, for all you guys that are real long-time Nuggets fans, and I know that was 16 years ago, But you go in, you give game 1 or 2 away because you can't get the ball inbounds. You lose a close one there. It's 2-2 in LA. You're going to win game 5. I thought you played better than the Lakers game 5. And again, I think it came down to an M-downs play that you couldn't get in. You end up losing a close, hard-fought game 5 in
Denver.
In LA.
Or in LA, you're right.
You come home game 6. You know, here we go. You've had a chance to beat them twice in LA already. You know, let's just get back here for a game 7. Feeling pretty good. And they get blown out in game 6 at home. And if you guys all remember, this 2009, to Carmelo Anthony's own admission, we gave up and quit playing. Lord, I don't want to see that tomorrow. If they lose another close game, I'll be sad. It'll suck. I'll have to break down the Broncos schedule for the next 5 months. and
we're going to do that tonight.
Yeah, you can. I got them 6-11 the first go through. Just skip it. I just don't want to see 2009. I don't want to see 2009. I think our star now is got a stronger mind. Although you had Chauncey on that team.
Yeah.
Chauncey called me. He called me or texted me 4 times during that Laker Orlando series where they just pummeled Orlando. I think they beat them 4-1. And he kept, this is our ring. This is supposed to be our ring. This is our ring. And it was. If you beat the Lakers and you had 2 chances in LA, you win that series, you probably win a ring right there in 2009.
Well, that's the crazy thing about this. For all that's going on, if the Nuggets can get the next 2 games, which again, I don't think anybody think it's completely out of their own possibility. I certainly don't. But if you can get these next 2 games, you get home court back against Minnesota. Now, you know, we'll all remember last year. But see, it's funny you bring up the 2009 Lakers series because Nate and I talked about that today because I asked Nate, you know, now the thing I thought about was I was around the Broncos in 2014. It was the 2014 playoff or whatever. Or no, it would have been 2015 was the playoff year, but the 2014 season where they lost to the Colts at home. And then Deflategate happened because John Fox was talking about going to Chicago and all the coordinators leading, blah, blah, blah. But I remember some of the Bronco players basically, we heard, they're like, why do we need to win this one? We ain't going to win New England anyway. So they just kind of, so I hope the Nuggets don't do that. And that's what Nate brought up the 2009 Lakers series in that game 6 there. But I agree with you, Nicole.
And again, it was a heartbreaking loss in game 5 in LA.
Well, the good news is that technically the Nuggets have had 2 heartbreaking losses. Now, Nate asked a question on our show earlier, which one was harder? I think yesterday was harder than game 4 because I felt like yesterday you had your shot going. You were in your bag. You controlled the game. I felt like game 4, both teams just shot crappy, and they just happened to quit shooting crappier sooner than you did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you had control of that game yesterday and on their court.
Yeah, I would go game 4. I mean, you're up 8 going the fourth quarter now, 1-2, and it's home only because it's home. The only difference for me is you beat away a home game that would have given you a 3-1 lead, and then you get your heart broken last night in OKC. You still got a chance to close the series out tonight.
Fair enough,
or tomorrow night. So just for me, from the standpoint, it was a home game. This one was played better. I thought they played well. They played well enough to win this game. And just had, a streak there in the middle of the fourth that killed them.
All right, I'll tell you why I also lead on yesterday, since we can't agree on nothing. I don't know that I feel like you're going to get it. I certainly don't know that you'll get another 40-something point game out of Joker. And I don't know if you'll get the kind of shooting. Like, until the fourth quarter, they were shooting all right. I don't know, Scotty, they went 28, 28, 30, and then 19, I think it was. Just, you were balanced. You know what I mean? You
had 19 in the fourth, and Joker had 13 of them.
Yeah, and you were playing the game you wanted to play. I don't know, Scotty. It's just too bad. Look, if they all show, here's what's crazy about this team. If they all show up, especially with Boston going to be out here soon, right? I still haven't seen the score yet, Scotty, but with the teams that are left, now Indiana I think is more scary than they're getting credit for. But seriously, if they can all contribute, and Joker only needs to give you 25 to 30 because everybody else is giving you about 20 from Gordon, 20 something from Murray, 15 from MPJ, 15 from Ryan. You can get something like that. I don't know, 10, 15 from Brown. You get something like that going again, they can beat anybody. They can hoist another trophy. You were saying this last year in the playoffs.
Yep. Well, game 3 you won. You had 4 guys score 20s. And Joker didn't have a big scoring, big efficient night that night either, did he?
No, that was the first night where I was like, Joker's elbow is legitimately bothering him. So,
well, I teased at the beginning of the thing. I'll tell you now. Here's the thing I saw different from Joker, and he has to do it tomorrow night also if he's able. He decided to go, okay, screw this. Shot going out. I'm not just going to float on the 3-point line. You saw him rolling and in the paint, and now when they swept or when they switched or whatever, I think he had 6 offensive rebounds last night, and I'll bet you 5 of them he put back in.
Okay.
And I thought he was living in the paint on the offensive glass, and I thought that almost screwed how they were going to play them. I mean, you know what I'm saying? When he's having to back down. You watch it. There's like 3 dudes always around him wherever he's going to be. And all of a sudden, kick out. Here comes the shot. Guess who was big-bodied again for Kevin? I like my 7'1", 285-pound, 290-pound dude right around the rim when shots go up, even if they're offensive shots. I like that. I like that a lot. And I thought he wreaked havoc, rolling to the rim more and staying in the paint. And seriously, go back and look. Think about how many tip-ins he got. And I thought that was the difference and why his game was more efficient last night than it had been in the past.
So Kevin does want to know if I'm a casual NBA fan. You probably label it that way. Now, look, I watch every single Nuggets game, and I enjoy good team basketball. I've been watching the Warriors and Wolves series, and I hate the Wolves, but I admire the way they're playing. But yeah, look, Kevin, if I had a choice, and Scotty knows this, I'll watch the hockey before I watch NBA most nights. I don't watch college basketball. I cover a ton of football. I get a bunch of mammoth games. I'll be honest with everybody, and Scotty I know understands this. You do need a mental break from sports sometimes. I love sports. I love talking about sports. I love getting paid to watch sports. But there's
thank God for the Rockies.
Thank God for the Rockies. We don't have to worry about them all summer, right? They lost again tonight. But yeah, Kevin, I would tell you this. I used to love the NBA of Scotty's era. And, I hate doing this because you go on the old man rant or whatever. But I loved a little bit of the anger. I loved a little bit of the nastiness, I loved Michael Jordan, even though Scotty's sitting here. I loved Scotty's Pistons team. And then once that kind of broke up a bit, I got into Jordan because the Nuggets just were meh and didn't do. I mean, they were fine. They were good, but they weren't maybe as exciting as I wanted. I started to really love the Nuggets when Mutombo showed up. He was the first real exciting player that I thought they had, and I thought he was a lot of fun in the wagging and the mountain. And my favorite player probably that era outside of Mr. Scott Hastings was LaFonso Ellis. I absolutely loved LaFonso Ellis. I was so sad that things broke down for him. I was excited when they had Ellis, McDyess, and Rogers together. I thought that was awesome. Mahmoud, or if you knew him as Chris Jackson, they had a ton of fun teams. There was in the mid 90s, Scotty, I got into the NBA draft as much as I got into the NFL draft because these were college kids, right? I think what got hard for a lot of us, the NBA had that era where you got a Skidishvili, you got Nene, you're taking Kwame Brown out of high school. I don't know who these dudes are. I don't have any college highlights or tournament highlights where I happen to see this guy play. Who was Bo Kimball's? Was it Bo Kimball that was here? And Hank Gathers was his teammate. Didn't Bo Kimball play at the Nuggets and he had the left-handed shot, or do I have it backwards?
Hank Gathers is the one that passed away.
Away, sadly.
Bo Kimball played in the league just for a few years. He may have had a cup of coffee in Denver. I don't really remember if he did, but I remember calling game where he got in and played.
This is a cool question. Anyway, look, yeah, Kevin, I like the NBA, but I don't love it as much as I once did. Look, we used to watch the basketball playoffs all the way through, and then we go play hoops in the park until the lights came on in the summer. It was a great time, but the modern NBA, again, if you play like the Nuggets, if you move the ball around, I love that kind of stuff. But I'm like everybody else. I don't need to see 100 threes a night. I guess that's where it goes for me. I don't do college basketball. Nate's into college basketball big. Josh asked, just where does the championship call rank as best moments in your career?
1A or 1B, probably closer to 1A because I played for the team, albeit just a couple of years. I had broadcasted the team since I retired from playing. For at that time would have been my 30th year or something like that, 29th. I don't know, I figured out. But the two that stand out, that game right there, the Broncos' first Super Bowl, I was covering that with Dave.
That was awesome.
And here's the beauty for me for both of those moments. And I know you probably lived it. And Danny knows Dave well too. Always comes off this hard ass dude, always wants to punch in the chest, fight you kind of guy, right? Blah, blah, blah. and that's Dave. But when you hear that last call, when they knock the ball down, and you hear the emotion in his voice, oh baby, they're gonna win this thing, and you can hear his voice cracking. This is hard ass, pissed off for a couple of years at the Broncos because they cut him and ended his football career. Mad at Dan Reeves for a decade or two. And when he made that call, and I'm down on the field, I was the color analyst, and so I'm going down on the field till I get in interviews. In fact, I got shot in the back of the head with one of them confetti guns. So I'm listening on these headphones, and dude, I've got tears in my eyes just because I'm listening to Dave. And I guarantee you, there's a lot of people in Denver that were listening to Dave's call and had tears in their eyes. It was eerily similar for Cos and I, and where we were sitting. And Cos has been here a long time too. He hasn't been as long as I have, but he's been here a long time also. And I feel like he had something that he kind of semi-prepared, but then you could kind of hear the emotion in his voice that he finally realized what this moment was. And when I say, you kind of get his moment, I say back to him, is that, guys, just take off your earphones and listen to this crowd. And both of us, which I was just blown away myself. And I think Jesse Trujillo had video they posted. Both of us are basically wiping tears out of our eyes. So yeah, that's like, as far as the broadcaster, that and that first Super Bowl, this one may have meant more because, like I said, I played for the team, but 1A and 1B, and it's because the play-by-play guys, Jason Kosminski and Dave Logan, showed that it's more than a job, even though our bosses don't look at what we do as anything more than a job. It becomes part of your blood, and it becomes part of ingrained in you. And hear those two guys I got fortunate enough to be with, emotional over the calls. I thought that'll always be special for me.
Yeah, the one thing you and I share that's been cool, we both got to cover a winning Super Bowl. I unfortunately had to cover a losing Super Bowl. You never had to do that. That sucks. I hope you never have to do that. I'm trying to look. It was so cool because, as you said, man, guys, that when you're covering a winning team in the Super Bowl, it's nuts, right, Scotty? The post games are so long. There's chaos after the game. You're waiting for stages to get set up. You're trying to get access to places. Half the time now I got lucky. We did it right, and I got in between the ropes, and they raised the ropes, and I was on the right side, so I didn't have any problems trying to get to where I needed to be when it came to the Super Bowl, but I did have a problem with the AFC Championship of all things. But you're waiting forever, so I'm waiting down there to do my first interview. And I remember I'm trying to find a picture right now on my phone. I was standing there and I was going to go to Chris Harris because Chris was my guy. So I was just like, this is the first dude I need to talk after this Super Bowl victory. And you remember Antonio Smith?
Yeah.
He was a defensive lineman for them. His dad died the week of the game. He went home to make sure his mom was okay. And then he came back to play in the Super Bowl. And so there's a really cool picture the Broncos took where I'm standing waiting. Well, there's the picture of that. Gosh, I wonder if I can't really blow it up, or I would. I'll try to show you on the phone best I can. But so I'm in the background there. You know, the reflection sucks on my TV. I'm in the background, and that was the safety Kai George or Kai something Harris, and there's Smith. And you can see him. He's in the middle, and he's finally broke down. And God, it was a great moment. And I'm waiting to talk to him, and you know, I was like, screw it. Let's take a selfie. I can't really find the selfie with those guys, but I took a selfie with Smith and with Harris. And like you said, the confetti's coming down, and I don't know, man. It just is so nuts. And it's so nuts how long the post games go. I think we were on the air for like we were not going to get off the air, obviously, until we talked to Peyton Manning. We must have done a 3-hour post game and then get him to like the last 10 minutes of the post game, right? Because he's got to go to the pressers. He's got to be up there with Jim Nantz. He's got to. How long were you guys? I'm trying to remember. How long were you guys on the air after the Nuggets won?
I don't know.
Is it all a blur?
It's all kind of a blur. It was all kind of a blur. But it was cool. I'll tell you two things for that the Super Bowl run up and the Super Bowl. Same thing. Remember Keith Traylor going into that game against Kansas City in the second round, and they just gotten beat late in the season in Kansas City. Keith Traylor's grandmother passed away, who basically raised him, and Mr. Bolin gave him his plane to fly down to Little Rock to check on his family. And they beat Kansas City, which was a shock because you had to go on the road and beat Kansas City.
Didn't think it was going to happen.
And no one thought it was going to happen. And you beat them. And it wasn't about celebrating and getting ready to go to Pittsburgh to play in the AFC Championship. It was, I saw all these guys loving on Keith Traylor. And that's when I remember, in fact, I won a $100 bet from Dick Stockton, who I that following week I was working with TNT, and so I'm doing a game with Dick Stockton and Hubie Brown, and he was calling NFL games. I said, the Broncos going to Super Bowl. Oh, no way. I'll bet you $100. You know, I said, you're on. I got it. I came back, saw him after a week after the Super Bowl. I said, I'm in a $100 bet. Well, that was a real bet.
Yeah, it was.
I took it. I took that. But I saw a team that the team, the game was secondary to the feelings of one of their key players. And I knew that was going to be something special about them that year. And then the second moment I had like that, and we had talked to John Elway. We were in San Diego for that one, Super Bowl 32, and Dave and I are doing our radio show, and we're broadcasting. We're doing our shows from the lobby of the hotel, and John Elway comes down and sits with us for 15, 20 minutes during the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, one of them days, right? And it was like just the three of us sitting there talking on the radio, right? And laugh track, Kenny. And,
God bless you, Kenny.
He's telling the story how after they won the AFC Championship in Pittsburgh, and he called his mom, said, Mom, we're going back to Super Bowl. And she goes, oh, Johnny, do you have to? Because remember they lost those 3 in a row in the 80s, right? So that was kind of the feeling there. But they win the Super Bowl, and so I'm in the locker room. In fact, if you watch the video, there's video of the highlights that year. I'm the big 6'10" doofus standing right behind Mike Shanahan while he's talking to the team after the Super Bowl win with this big red shiny NFL hat on because they gave me access. And I'm like all cheering. I'm like, I'm right there with them. But we always got Elway, and so I'm going to do my thing that we talked to Elway right away. And David talked to Shanahan, and it's about me and John ready to go. Super Bowl quarterback, here we are. And I'm watching Jack, his dad, stand in the corner. He was a scout for the Broncos. And he's just standing in the corner, not trying to get in on the celebration, but you can tell he's just waiting for that moment he's going to get with his son. And John sees him literally right before he's coming over to me, and they embrace for 2 or 3 minutes. I'm sitting there. By the time John walks over, I'm bawling. I mean, I'm like, Dad, because like you said, his mom said, "Oh, Johnny, do you go back to the Super Bowl?" And to climb that hill and to win it, and to watch that moment with John and his dad will always be special to me. That was really cool. That was cool.
It's I don't know, man. Like it's weird when it's your team too. It's like, again, I don't know. It's a special deal. I always liked. You remember that play, don't you? These are the pictures I took. See, do you have any pictures? I actually took pictures. That was where.
No, I was working. I took it as a real job, and I wasn't trying to be a spectator and get followers on X.
Well, I don't think I ever missed a report or an injury report, and I did 3 hours interviews after, and then that's pretty good right there.
Is that right before the sack fumble? And
you don't get to know. You're Mr. Hardcore professional guy that never dropped his pants in the locker room with John Elway or anything. I mean, you're hard.
That was the sack fumble that.
Well, I mean, but again, I don't drop my pants to do interviews, Mr. Professional. And I didn't learn about that in school, where we should stand in our underwear together. Yes, you did. You told John, you said he came out of towel and you wouldn't let him do it alone, so you dropped trowel. Someone's got a picture of it. I think they put it in the post or something.
No way.
Yes.
I mean, I didn't drop trowel. I probably had my underwear on.
No, yeah.
Yeah. I can I say something?
Please.
I don't remember.
We're already over time. What, why not?
I don't remember doing that, but I wouldn't deny that I did.
You come on now. It was one of your best stories. How do you not remember?
Dude, can I say something? What's his name just said, "Oh, that's funny. That's awesome. I was 4 years old." I was 4 years old when I
Is that the one?
And I was like thinking, well, dude, I was like 34. I mean, I'm like 35 years old. I mean, come on now.
No, you were in your 40s, I thought.
No. 97. That's 28 years ago.
How old were you? Oh, okay. You're right.
28 years ago.
Here's why I thought. Here's the deal. Dave was in his 40s, right?
Oh yeah, I was 35, probably about to turn 36.
Because when we did the zoo, if you remember, when we did the zoo, Dave was 40s, you were 30s, and a bunch of us were in our 20s, and we had like the whole.
We called you guys the 20-somethings.
But the key demographic we were going for, we had every age group in our little posse trying to put this show together. So
yeah, and one of the coaches is in his 30s, and he act like he's 14. You know what? Now that you say that, I do kind of remember something like that. He was, man, let me get dressed. I mean, you don't need to get dressed. And I think I took my pants off, or I unbuttoned.
You said, I'll make you feel better. You told me it was like your first, it was one of the early games with John. And
probably why he liked me at the time. I don't know.
Well, yeah, because you were one of the guys. There's a look, man, locker room culture gets a bad rap sometimes, but you could handle the locker room. Right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's be honest. John Elway was probably only he was my age. We were the same age.
Sure.
Sure. I think we both came out in 83.
All right. We probably rambled enough. So what's your prediction for tomorrow?
We'll say same thing I saw for Game 5. If they come out and you can tell they're playing the first 6 minutes, it's going to be a long game. You're probably going to have to win a tight game late. I don't think they're deep enough to win it going away. They will win it going away if Oklahoma City decides they're just going to wait for Game 7. Denver did that in Minnesota last year, by the way.
I remember you talking about it.
The game 6 in Minnesota and didn't even look to show up. and then Minnesota shocked them. So I don't think Oklahoma City's built like that. But if they're to give it in and give it up, then who knows? Who knows? I like Denver's chances to win it. I just hope they've got what it takes to know that you ain't tomorrow's the first half.
Right.
Because if you win tomorrow, you got a game. You got a game Sunday. This is a two-parter. Bitter. Yeah.
By the way, Marie loves you calling D-Mac a muggle.
Well,
so
he is.
Well, I feel like I got to be a muggle too. So although I don't have a blog,
we're all muggles. But listen, I'm not going to let some other muggle tell me what my opinion is going to be.
Okay, I get that.
I'm not going to call Mike Kliss and Mike Kliss. So now that's my opinion. I don't care. I love Jeff Legwald. He ain't going to give me my opinion.
I'll vouch for that.
I thought D-Mac was letting some guys give him his opinion.
Okay.
I don't know Hawk Harrelson, Kevin, but I know of Hawk Harrelson.
Who's that?
He's a baseball player, and I think a longtime broadcaster.
He was a real okay. All right.
Look it up. If I'm not mistaken, I can't look it up on my phone, but
you're on your phone. All right.
Yeah, I believe he was he played third base. Wasn't third base, but I could be wrong. And then he broadcast for a lot of years. I think he got in trouble one, but sometimes said something stupid on the air or something.
Okay, you're right. He's 83 years old. He's still with us. He's a current television announcer.
Oh, he's still doing it.
That's what it says for the Chicago White Sox. Kevin really is in Chicago. He's not lying. So, yeah. All right, there you go.
Yeah. So
now, Kevin, I'm not a big baseball fan, if you're curious. It's why I went to play lacrosse. So
I want to say we had Hawk Harrelson on the program before when I was at KOA.
Oh, we had a ton of people on. Yeah, you know why?
Because we had a great producer.
Yeah, her name was Julie Brownman. Who was the one who did someone get you Bonds? Who was the girl that got you Bonds?
That was Julie.
I thought some girl went in. Was it Julie? I thought there was one after Julie. I thought it was an intern, Kate the Awesome Intern or something like that, right?
Kate may have tried.
Yeah, I thought she went down there. The player thought she was cute, and so you got the interview.
Well, it might have been Kate. I don't know.
Now, Susie got hit on by our guy. Who was the old Cub? Mark Grace. Mark Grace told Susie swing on by after the game one time. He was using her phone from the dugout to call you guys.
Well, maybe Mark Grace has got the king of the slump buster stories.
Oh yeah, he's got all sorts. Did you ever hear the one about? Nah, if we don't need it.
Time to go, Andy.
Yeah, listen. Hey, just look up.
It's over today.
Just look up George Brett having a bad piece of crab in Vegas and then crap in his pants. He's the one that told the story. It's awful. All right. On that note, good night, everybody.
Good night.